Good. Let's send out. Hello, welcome, and thank you for liking. I'll be starting in a few moments. Oh, and what episode we've got today? Sending out the link, and we will start. If you could confirm that you can hear me, that would be great. Shout out to Yaniv Outman, my cousin who's watching. Okay. Oh boy. This shall be fun. Oh, I guess more mixed bag with the Browns. Oh, and a bit of a heads up. If you thought the Bill Belichick thing last week was bad, it got even worse with media this week. That's going to be one of the first topics we talk about once we get into NFL. But first, we got the craziness of college football to unpack. Start in a few seconds. Starting like less than 30. All right, let's start. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 14 of the Benny in the Booth podcast. What an episode we've got to unfold. The college football playoff semifinals have ended, and we have the national championship game all set. Predictions for that coming up as well. We also have the New Year's Six Bowls to recap. And boy, what an interesting mess that wasn't as well. NFL Week 17 to recap, which went absolutely bananas. NFL Week 18 predictions, and more NFL media stupidness, all coming up on this week's episode of the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Happy New Year to everyone, as this is the first episode of 2022. Sadly, we did not get to the subscriber goal I was hoping for, but it's okay. You know what? You win some, you lose some. Still satisfied where it's at currently. I'm potentially going to keep the goal towards MLB The Show 22 release date and still have it that the reward be like I do stream for MLB The Show 22 opening night, but not officially setting that just yet. We'll see. But either way, thank you for all the support to this point. It's crazy that we've even gotten to 14 episodes. And even the fact that I'm even doing this still like years back would be crazy to me. But anyways, let's get into it. College football playoff semifinals. The matchups once again in the Cotton Bowl. You had Alabama and Cincinnati. That's the first game we're going to talk about, and this was all Alabama, completely mopping by Alabama. Cincinnati didn't even put up a touchdown. Bama completely dominated. And what's funny is they were without their best receiver, and they're just like, we're going to run the ball and try to stop us. And they couldn't stop Brian Robinson III for Alabama. He ran for over 200 yards. They completely dominated Cincinnati. And I think that's a nail in the coffin for a group of 5 team to make the college football playoffs. Now, if you're going to come and respond to me, oh, but Ohio State's done worse in the playoffs before. Michigan State's done worse in the playoffs before. You could say Michigan even performed worse, and we'll get to that in a second. You could say, and so on and so forth. Here's the difference. The committee and everyone values Power 5 teams more than Group of 5. Unless you have an alma mater of a college that's in Group of 5, if you follow college football, you're following a Power 5 team like Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Clemson, Alabama, so on and so forth. Unless I'm alma mater, you're not following anything below that. Period. End of story. So I think that was a nail in the coffin, sadly. And not trying to say Cincinnati didn't deserve to make it in. They just completely fell apart. Like, Cincinnati deserved it. They had the resume this year, completely deserved it. They just fell apart. Had a bad game completely. And they had some things go their way, but they could not take advantage. Picks, turnovers, only field goals. That was like really like, if you would have told me it was a touchdown and a missed extra point, okay, that's a bit different. Manageable. Fine. But it was 2 field goals. Whether chip shot or not, 2 field goals. That's not good. Not acceptable. Probably no more Group of 5 teams from now on. And I hate to say that to anybody who might be watching that's following a Group of 5 team somehow, but that's my perspective on it. We'll leave it there. Not much more to say on it. End of story. Then in the Orange Bowl, we had Georgia. I almost said Clemson, thinking back to old college football playoff matchups. Ugh. Georgia and Michigan. This was all Georgia. Georgia had a game plan to stop Aiden Hutchinson of Michigan, and it completely worked. Their tight ends had great games. Their defense absolutely rocked Cade McNamara. Literally, Michigan's touchdown was with their backup in garbage time, and they got a 2-point conversion out of it as Georgia rolls all over Michigan 34-11 to set up an SEC championship game sequel rematch for the national championship. And unless someone could sell me how Georgia could win this game, I'm flat out going to tell you my pick is Alabama. And I hate to say that my pick's Alabama because no one really wants Alabama to win national championships unless they're a Bama fan. But at the end of the day, I just don't know if Georgia's be able to beat them. I think Bama wins it again. Sorry to any Bama haters, but that's my pick for the national championship game. But anyways, let's get into New Year's Six bowls. First up, no, I'm not starting with Ohio State because there was a bowl game that actually was a good bowl game before then. Michigan State and Pitt. Pitt actually jumped out 21-10. And it was like, is it over? Is it not? I think they were even without their starter. I think they were, because their starter, I think, sat out. And a lot of people do this in college football. Like, if you're draft bound, you'll sit out the bowl game just to stay healthy for the draft, and ended up being a big factor in another game in the New Year's Six bowl games. We'll get to that momentarily. But Michigan State actually came back to win 31-21, pulling off the win and a big bowl win for them, especially after having been whooped by having some bad losses this year. This is a nice end of story for Michigan. They didn't have the running back, who I think was also draft bound and sat out. I'm not 100% sure about that. But either way, Michigan State came back to win. That was the Peach Bowl, Fiesta Bowl. Last one before we get into the Ohio State game. Oklahoma State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame actually jumped out to a 28-7 lead, but Oklahoma State, unlike their Big 12 championship game performance where they were 1 yard short multiple times, actually this time delivered and came all the way back to win 37-35 over Notre Dame. Next up, the Ohio State game. Ohio State, Utah. Boy, did it. Well, this was crazy. Utah jumped out 14-0 in the blink of an eye. And then they literally spent almost 3 minutes with 5 touchdowns between the two teams. Passing touchdowns and a kick return touchdown that actually had 2 Ohio State guys go down on the play. And it was 35-21.5. Ohio State had fumbled the ball in the first half a bit, like Jackson Smith, the Jigba. Also, let me know, they were without their 2 top receivers who sat out because they're draft eligible, which is totally understandable. They were without 4 people. The other one was an offensive lineman and a defensive guy. And then in the second half, they come out, they get a drive a bit, ends in a pick, and I'm just like, game over. 35-21. They had a score in their opening drive of the second half. I thought, game over. Boy, was I wrong. Ohio State came all the way back to take a 45-38 lead. Utah would go to tie it, and Ohio State would win on a game-winning field goal with barely time left. They tried to do another kick return touchdown, but it completely failed as Ohio State comes all the way back to win 48-45. Since I've been following college football, this is the best bowl game I have ever seen. Now, not including since I've been following Georgia or Oklahoma, probably tops it. Another Rose Bowl game happens to be college football playoffs. You can even say the last time Alabama and Georgia made the Natty is on top of that. Like, there are a few other more memorable games, but this is one of the best I have ever seen. It was just a crazy, nuts game. And the crucial part for Ohio State is the fact that their defense, which was bad in the first half, held Utah to 10 points in the second half, which was huge. Now, their quarterback did go down at some point in the second half, but they still had some fight in them, so it didn't make much biggest of differences necessarily. But either way, Ohio State comes back to win and ends the season on a high note. Next up, the Sugar Bowl, Baylor and Ole Miss. My prediction for Ole Miss to win this game, or I think I picked Ole Miss, but Ole Miss's chances to win this game went completely out the door in a blink of an eye because their quarterback, who's actually draft eligible, got badly injured, and that was the turning point because the backup basically right away threw pick 6, and that was all she wrote. They did get a touchdown at some point, but it didn't matter. Baylor winning over Ole Miss 21-7, and that is the bowl game recap. We will recap the national championship game next week. There is technically another bowl game next week, but it's not one that, aside this, actually tonight, I think, but it doesn't matter really to mostly anybody. The only one that matters is the national championship game. So I'm only going to be covering the national championship game, though. I will be going over conferences, records, and bowl games. As I do, there is a way to find that out. So I'm going to be going over that next week as well as recapping the national championship game. Once again, my pick's Bama. I don't think Georgia has any shot to actually or they have a shot. I just don't think they will win the Natty. Next up, so that's college football and my predictions from the playoff and NY6 bowl games was 2-4. Bad record. Let's not talk about it. NFL Week 17. Well, actually, before we actually get into the actual games. So last week I had mentioned the NFL media went completely stupid with a question to Bill Belichick. They struck again. Prior to the Bears-Giants game, which, spoiler alert, the Giants got completely mopped. We'll get into that later. At a training camp at a practice week press conference with Saquon Barkley, someone had mentioned the fact that was where he tore his ACL last year. I was like, are you going to go take revenge on the field or something? Like how some people would go number one on the field. He actually said like the word, but I'm just going to use more proper language. Number one, light on fire, some sort of mess like that. I literally just sat there and like, what the heck? Like, are you serious? Literally any of the actions the dude said could get Barkley either A, suspended, B, cut, or C, probably even permanently banned. Now, I give Barkley credit for not shellacking the guy and literally just saying no, but what the heck? Like, seriously, what is NFL media these days? I just don't know what is going on with NFL media these days. Like, what the heck? Is it attention grabbing? Maybe, but like, I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. If you want to try to put an explanation in chat or the comments, I'm open to it, but I just don't know anymore. Period. Moving on. NFL Week 17. First up, Washington football team hosting the Eagles. Football team jumped out early, 10-0, and also at some point 16-7. But Philly fought their way back to stay alive for a chance at the playoffs, which actually, with the Packers winning, are actually clinched a playoff spots. They are playoff bound. There's still one playoff seed to determine in the NFC and a conference to determine the NFC for this coming week. But either way, Eagles win 20-16. Next up, Rams at Ravens. The Ravens actually had a 16-7 lead also at a certain point. And at certain points, you might have thought the game was over, but the Rams actually fought their way back and winning on a go-ahead touchdown by former Cleveland Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., and that sealed the win for the Rams as they beat the Ravens 2019. And FYI, they were still without Lamar Jackson. It was Tyler Huntley this week who was back. Next up, Jets and Buccaneers. This was the oddest game in the world. The Jets actually were winning at certain points in this game. And the true meltdown of this game was Antonio Brown at some point in the game taking off his jersey and pads, completely going topless and just going nuts, going out of the tunnel, and he's basically now cutting off the team. He was saying that like they wanted to go back out, but he was injured, or he gave a bunch of excuses. I don't know. It's an entire mess. But anyways, Tampa Bay came back to win this game in the end over the Jets. But again, like you got to come back drive Tom Brady. But it was against the Jets, who stink. No one cares. Yeah. Next up, Tennessee hosting the Dolphins. All Titans 34-3. Next up, Patriots and the Jets. Patriots hang a 50 spot all over the Jaguars 50-10. Colts and Raiders. This was neck and neck all the way. And the Raiders ended up winning on a game-winning 33-yard field goal to beat the Colts 23-20. Kansas City, Cincinnati. Kansas City had a 28-7 lead, 21-7 or big lead early. Bengals fought their way to get a 31-28 lead. Chiefs tied it. The Bengals got to the red zone. A mess of penalties and a game-winning field goal to clinch the AFC North and eliminate the Browns from the division. They're out of the playoffs and then due to other circumstances and their own result. But yeah, Bengals are the division winners. Congrats to them. We'll see what happens with them in the playoffs. But Bengals win 34-31 surprisingly. And it also did something in the standings and knocked the Chiefs out of first place. And now the Titans are first place in the AFC. And the 1 seed comes down to this week. I think if the Titans win flat out, they win. They get the 1 seed. They did win the division this week with their win. And I think maybe also with another result or something. But either way, they won the division. But if they win, they get the 1 seed. But if the Chiefs win and they lose or some sort of other mix like that, Chiefs could get the 1 seed. Even the Bengals could get the 1 seed, but it's involving a bunch of crazy results, and I doubt the Bengals will, which sadly means they're not going to be resting their starters against the Browns next week, which I wish they would be, but they're not going to be. Anyways, Bengals won. Bears at Giants, this was a complete domination by the Bears, including a safety. Bears win 29-3. Bills at Falcons, the only thing that went the Falcons' way was a safety early on. Other than that, it was completely Buffalo 29-15. There was snow on the ground. I don't think it was snowing. It was just snow from previous, I guess, on the ground. But either way, Bills completely dominated. Niners hosting the Texans. This was completely San Francisco winning 23-7. Chargers at Broncos. Chargers completely dominating 34-13. And this officially eliminated the Cleveland Browns from the playoffs. Panthers at Saints. Panthers had a 10-6 lead, but the Saints were pretty good early on. Saints came back to win 18-10. Seahawks at Lions, completely Seattle's. They win 51-29. Cardinals and Cowboys, all Arizona early. Dallas tried to put up a rally late, got within 3 points, but behind a controversy fumble, which they couldn't challenge because they were out of timeouts, the Cardinals hung on to win 25-22. I did see the play, and in truth, let me put it this way. In truth, it's hard to tell whether he fumbled or not. From what I was seeing from the clips, I think it was barely down before the ball came out. And I'm sorry to say this to any Cowboys fans. I think they ruled it correctly. It's tough. I think they ruled it correctly, though, at the end of the day. But anyways, Dallas loses to Arizona 25-22. Sunday Night Football, Packers hosting the Vikings. All I need to say is Kirk Cousins was out. And backup sucked. Packers won 37-10, locking up the 1 seed in the NFC. So they will have the first round bye in the NFC for the second consecutive year, and will not have to play the wild card week. Monday Night Football, Browns Steelers. All I'm going to say is this was the worst effort the Browns have ever put up in a game, probably since 0-16. The offense sucked. The offensive line sucked. The defense had some good points, but overall sucked. It was all Pittsburgh. As they sweep the Browns, Ben Roethlisberger gets a last win at home. Congrats to him winning in his last home game. And we'll see. He'll probably be retiring after the year. I'm definitely not going to miss him. But happy retirement, I guess. And that's week 17, the mess that it was. Update on the standings. The 1 seed firmly confirmed will be the Green Bay Packers. There won't be a standings updates next week because next week everything's going to be set for the playoffs, and the standings update will just be the prediction with the schedule. But the 2 seed right now is a 2-way tie between the Rams and the Buccaneers. The Rams having a playoff spot clinched, and if they win the division. The Buccaneers have their division clinched, both at 12-4. Packers are 13-3. The Cowboys at 11-5 have clinched their conference. Not sure if they could go higher. The Cardinals at the 5, they're 11-5. Excuse me. The Cardinals at the 5 spot, 11-5. If they win and the Rams lose, they clinch the division. But all the Rams need to do is win and they clinch division, so we'll see what happens. The Eagles clinched the 7th playoff spot. Right now is the 7th seed. San Francisco being the 6th seed has not clinched a playoff spot. Both are 9-7, but one has clinched, one has not. And then the Saints, who still have a shot this week at in the 8th spot. And the teams eliminated are the Lions, Giants, Panthers, Seahawks, Bears, football team, Falcons, and Vikings. And eventually either San Francisco or New Orleans will be joining that list. The AFC, Tennessee right now is a 1 seed. It's technically a tie, but Titans won the matchup earlier this year, so they have the upper hand. They won their division, followed by the Chiefs, who are also 11-5. They're both 11-5. They've won their division, followed by a 2-way tie for the third spot between the 10-6 Bengals and the 10-6 Bills. Bengals have clinched their division. Bills, they win, they clinch. Followed by the Patriots at 10-6. If they win and Buffalo loses, they clinch the AFC East. We'll see what happens. A multiple-way tie for the sixth spot between the Colts, Chargers, Raiders, and Raiders. No playoff spots been clinched other than the Patriots, so 6 and 7 still wide open. With Colts, Chargers, Raiders, all still left and more, but they're all 9-7. Followed by the 8-7-1 Steelers still have a shot. Followed by the 8-8 Ravens who still have a shot. And the teams eliminated officially are the Jaguars, Texans, Jets, Broncos, Browns, sadly, and the Dolphins. This week in predictions, I actually did pretty good at 11-5. My total record with podcast predictions in total is 112-66-1. Week 18 predictions. There's actually Saturday football this week, as they announced this for this week. And there's Sunday night football. There will be this week. Monday night football, that was the last, though there is going to be in the wild card round, including a Manning cast, which, by the way, if you have ESPN2 and there's Manning cast on, watch the Manning cast. It's way better than Monday night football regular broadcast. I just had to mention that. Like, I watched the Manning cast for the Browns game last night. It's way better. And it doesn't even come close. Anyways, Saturday football. We got the Chiefs and the Broncos. Not much to explain here. The Chiefs need to win this game, and I think they will win this game. And the other Saturday game being Dallas and Philly, Dallas. Sunday games, Bengals at the Browns. I wish the Bengals were resting their stars. It would be easier for the Browns to try to sweep the Bengals. I do. Big news came out today that Baker will not be playing this week. He is out this week and is basically scheduled to start his surgery on his arm soon. I still think the Browns will win, or at least I still hope the Browns will win. I'm hoping. I want them to be able to sweep the Bengals. Packers at Lions. I have Packers. Bears at Vikings. Football team and Giants. Football team. Colts at Jaguars. Colts. Steelers at Ravens. Titans at Texans. Titans. Saints at Falcons. Saints. Bills at hosting the Jets. Bills. Patriots at Dolphins. Patriots. Panthers at Buccaneers. Niners at Rams. Seahawks at Cardinals. Sunday night football is the Chargers and the Raiders, and I have the Chargers. Now, one thing I do want to go over before we call the end to this week's episode of the podcast is I want to go over the clinching scenarios. I didn't write this in my notes. I just want to pull this up, but I feel like I should go over the clinching scenarios for this week. Here we go. So, the Ravens could get the last spot in AFC, or one of the last spots in the AFC, with a win. The Chargers lose to the Raiders, the Colts lose to the Jaguars, and the Dolphins lose to New England, which Chargers could happen, especially since the Raiders are also in a fight for a playoff spot still. Colts, doubt it. Even though Jaguars have had some upsets this year, I doubt it. Dolphins could happen, especially since the Patriots are still fighting for the AFC East. The Bills could clinch the AFC East flat out with a win, or technically if New England lost, or they tie in a New England tie. The Bengals would clinch the 1 seed. I doubt this is going to happen, but I still will be going through all the possibilities of clinchings, no matter how realistic or not they are. But they clinched the 1 seed with a win. Tennessee loss versus Houston. Kansas City loss versus Denver. New England loss versus the Dolphins. Some are more realistic than others. Or they win, Tennessee loses, Kansas City loses, and Buffalo win, either or could give the Bengals the 1 seed. The Colts would clinch a playoff spot flat out with a winner tie, or if the Chargers lose and Ravens and Steelers tie, which is a matchup this week, or Chargers lose, Steelers lose, and Dolphins win. Either way, it could give the Colts the playoff spot. Kansas City would clinch the 1 seed with a win and a Titans loss, or they tie and Titans loss. Also win or loss or tie for the Titans in the first situation. Raiders would clinch a playoff spot flat out with a win, or they tie an Indy loss, or their loss in Pittsburgh loss or tie. Chargers, basically same story. Well, the only situation they have is to win or tie, and they would get that play in the playoffs. The Patriots actually could get the 1 seed. If they win, Buffalo loss or tie, Kansas City loss, Tennessee loss. They get the division if they win and Buffalo loss or tie, or if New England ties and Buffalo loss. Pittsburgh clinches a playoff spot with their win, Indy loss, and Chargers Raiders game does not end in a tie. Interesting. And then the Titans clinch the 1 seed just flat out with a win, or their tie, and Kansas City loss, or their loss, Cincinnati loss, New England loss or tie, or their Kansas City loss, Bengals lose or tie, and Buffalo wins. That's for the AFC. For the NFC, the Eagles clinch their division with a Arizona clinches division with a win and a Rams loss. Rams clinch the division with their win or Arizona loss. Saints clinch the playoff spot with a win and a San Francisco loss. San Francisco clinches the last playoff spot with a win or tie, or New Orleans loss or tie. And that's the playoff clinching scenarios for this week. Let's end this episode. Thank you for coming back for this week's episode of the podcast. Next week in episode 15, we'll have the national championship game to recap. Go over the overall results per conference in the bowl games this year. NFL Week 18 to recap. NFL playoff wildcard round predictions. And who knows what else could come. Could we have more media drama? Could we have something else? Maybe more unfolds in the Antonio Brown story. Antonio Brown is a clown, FYI. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Leave notification bell on so you're notified when I go live or post a video. Thank you so much. See you in episode 15. Bye.